Hi, this is the Cat's Library. I'll be your librarian today. This week, or like the last couple of weeks, I decided to work on a couple videos at once. I think that this one will come out first before the walk cycle and the act video. For this video, I wanted to do something like the Monsters as Teens video that I made for Halloween, and I determined upon fantasy monsters as cute girls. I was very art blocked when I made these drawings. Okay, here we go. Engage speed paint. The first drawing up was what became the Goblin Girl, but I didn't have a clear goal in mind when I started out. I made a big blocky sketch with the Ghost Girl as a reference for the art style that I wanted to go for, and I decided that I wanted to draw a goblin during that first sketch. One inspiration was that I've been volunteering at a thrift store and wanted to try drawing distressed denim jeans. You're probably not at that part yet because I wanted to practice drawing crossed arms. I remember having trouble with this, but looking back at the footage, it doesn't look like it took too long. I used references for the pants to figure out how high the high-waisted jeans are and for the shoes. Probably should have looked at how distressed denim looks and a reference for the crossed arms. I think I looked at my own arms to figure out how that works in 3D space, so I guess I did have a reference. I gave her a sharp bob haircut because I was trying to give her triangular shape language, and the previous messy sketch wasn't fitting with her more refined personality. Maybe I was thinking that I needed something with more structure because I always run into problems with the shading when I draw a bunch of spikes, without thinking about how the spikes attach to the head. I wanted to give her a unique face that was still pretty. I have a feeling that this is going to be more subjective if people think her face looks good, but as a goblin I think that she looks pretty nice. I gave her 4 sketch layers, or technically 2 sketch layers and 2 line art layers. I just didn't like the first line art layer and opted to draw over it. I had a lot of tweaks that I wanted to do, especially on the arms and shoulders. And the shoes. Using that ghost as a reference did trip me up on the shoes. I think that I learned a lot from my more recent Redrawing My Childhood Superhero OC video on drawing shoes since last Halloween. I decided her stance was off after flipping the canvas, and so I flipped the legs and then flipped the whole thing back. I don't know a better way of describing that. Wanted to try making a green-skinned character with blonde hair because that seemed like a good challenge. I decided on this nice mid-tone green pretty early on and worked the whole color scheme around it. I chose a hot pink for the eyes because that was the opposite on the color wheel as the green, and the saturation really pops as a highlight color. It was also the color I made the shoelaces. I gave her yellow sclera because I was trying to harken back to the yellow and green color scheme that I'd originally envisioned. Blonde is a sort of weird color to pull off, but I decided on this sandy blonde color. It'll look better when it's shaded. I had envisioned her with a black turtleneck, but to fit with the cartoony art style, I made her shirt a dark purple, to be the opposite of the hair. I have no idea what this color scheme, all in all, would be called, since purple and pink are right next to each other, and green and yellow are also next to each other, and each set is opposite to each other. Weird things happen when you let your subconscious plan a drawing. I think this turned out pretty good. I made the shirt a light pink as a compromise between the bright pink that was elsewhere in the drawing and the white coat I had originally envisioned. The pants were 2 different shades of blue because that's a jeans color. Somehow this works with the scheme. I made the shading purple and pink. I added a bit of makeup to her face because I was feeling a bit insecure about it. I couldn't decide on a wall color, and I put down this squiggle to see if it was what I wanted, and decided to leave it as part of the wallpaper. Because of that, I decided that she was at a museum, and she was an artist who had art displayed at the museum, or art gallery, or whatever. This is my favorite character design of the video. I remember working harder on the others, but apparently this one has the most recording drawing time. If I didn't count the 2 failed Griffin attempts, that is. It is my least favorite background, even though it gave me that vague idea for her story. Well, I came into the video with the intention of making these guys students at the same school as that other video. The way I drew them made me think that they are probably in a completely different universe, or at least college kids in a different location. I did not go through with that, I don't think. I'm going to say that this character is named Leah. She is a normal girl from a somewhat normal world where people look like fantasy creatures but don't have any magic. They have laptops and modern medicine. It's just that their racial politics are a bit different from ours. Also, their world is bonded to 2 others. There's never been a repeated person in the 3 worlds. They are all original from each other and have unique historical figures and celebrities. More on that later. Sometimes some barely understandable fusion of physics and magic will grab someone and throw them into one of the other 2 worlds. This usually comes in the form of being cursed in one of the 2 high fantasy worlds. There is a way to intentionally get back to someone's homeworld after they've been displaced, but they must face the trials of that world to get back. In Leah's world, that means a lot of paperwork and calling people and figuring out the order of people that you need to call and whose job it is to do what. Their reality patrol is pretty good at getting to people who just spawned in, so to speak, though they are chronically overworked and not paid to do more than a quick background check in most instances. Sometimes they aren't the best at pointing people in the right direction to get back home or even find employment, education, or housing once they are there. The story begins when Leah comes back to her apartment one day and 2 girls from each of the other worlds spawn into her house, and she needs to help them get back home. Back to explaining the drawings. This is technically the 3rd one that I did, but I did 2 pretty involved sketches of the 2nd drawing that I had tried and wasn't liking them, and so I moved on to this drawing. Keeping up with the theme of practicing different poses, I drew her head and profile. I had a vague idea that I wanted to make a mermaid, but I didn't want to draw a straight up mermaid, and so I gave her legs. Keeping with the making things up as I went approach, I felt like giving her this Greek toga-inspired swimsuit dress and sandals combo. I wasn't quite sure about the stance, but I did decide to bring her tail down in front of one of the legs because it coincidentally fixed the composition of the weird stubby tail-like thing that I started out with. Changing the canvas from horizontal to vertical messed with me. I probably should change that up more often. It was really weird, but I felt claustrophobic drawing these, as if there wasn't enough space, even though it's around the same size as what I always do, only it's flipped. This was another one where I had 3 sketch layers and a line art layer. I spent half of the drawing time on the sketches and line art. I think that I was trying to go for a square shape language, but I forgot to keep that up the whole way through. This isn't bad for a more realistic design, but this might have been too cartoony to get away with that. The hair and the tail have a similar curving shape that ends at a tapered point. The dorsal fin on the tail also mirrors the ruffles on the outfit. Compared to the Leah drawing, this had a lot more going on, and I don't know if it makes it better or worse. After the line art, I painted in the background by blocking out the shapes and then adding rough gradient shading to the sky and water, and hard shading to the rock in the foreground. I put much more effort into the background later, but after I decided which colors that I initially wanted, I moved on to coloring the mermaid or fish lady creature or whatever. I wanted her to be a goldfish. She accidentally had a very similar color scheme to the goblin, but I think that the colors are arranged differently enough that they look differentiated from each other. She has gold skin, whitish blonde hair. The haircut is what I almost gave the goblin earlier, but I think it has enough structure here that it makes sense. Gold fins that are more orange than the skin, and a dark green, light blue, and seafoam green outfit. I did try to make the skirt an orangey brown for a moment, but this didn't really work. I tried a couple configurations of the outfit colors. I also drew in the scales on the flat color layer. I added some texture effects to the rock and the water. Then I began the shading. I should have just kept it simple. If the silhouette was that complicated, I didn't need to add texture and more shading to the scales. I don't know what I did here. And then I also added more texture with the highlights. The clothes are pretty simple because I had the body and fabric on different layers. Somehow the clothes are shinier than the body. Then I did 7 minutes of touch-ups and forgot to hit the record button. Basically, I changed the background to more of a pink sunset look, and I reshaded the hair because I thought it was too subtle. Her name is Vasiliki. She is a model in a world where there is magic and technology. Different countries have different levels of distribution of magic and technology. Vasiliki is from a magic primary country where technology is treated like a luxury. It is one of the only countries where it is socially acceptable to use both magic and tech, as the majority of them will stigmatize against whatever isn't their main. Vasiliki is upper class, though not nobility, and she has a washing machine. That is her go-to phrase that she uses to show off or to get her way. Do you know who I am? I have a washing machine, David. A washing machine! Needless to say, she doesn't do as well when her modeling rival pranks her by sending her into Leah's apartment. She kept trying to talk over the other girl who spawned in when the reality patrol guy came in to evaluate them. She wasn't listening to what that girl had to say, something about her sister. Vasiliki had a big fashion show coming up, and with current events was in danger of missing it. Leah was nice enough to help them with the paperwork. However, they both really wanted to get back home quickly, and so they both agreed to go through the trials correctly in front of Leah, and then made a plan to break into the National Institute of Supernatural Phenomenon to illegally use their transporter. The plan took several weeks to pull off. In the middle of the heist, Leah followed them and confronted them as they were about to tap in the settings. She cared about them enough not to call the authorities and genuinely thought that she could talk them down. Vasiliki let the two others talk it out while she frantically pressed the buttons and then spawned them into her world. The third girl went very stiff and then marched over to Vasiliki and held her by the collar. "You fool! I don't know if my sister is alive or dead and you teleport me here?" Vasiliki gulped. "Your sister?" She had a vague recollection of her saying something like that, but it finally sunk in. "I'm sorry?" The griffin growled and shoved the mermaid away. "It's too late for that, you useless vapid hairball." And then they all found out that Vasiliki's world was going to invade Leah's world, and so their argument had to go on hold while they sorted that out. There were technically two arguments they needed to ignore. Because Leah was still mad at them for breaking into the Institute, they were mad at her for trying to stop them, and Leah and the Griffin were mad at Vasiliki for basically kidnapping them. Now, I'm going to continue with the story over my two failed attempts at drawing the Griffin, therefore turning my greatest weakness into my greatest strength. Lady Magnolia Kenneth came from a world that was stereotyped to be the magic dimension. This is not entirely true. It is incredibly rare that anyone there has magical abilities, but the ones that are naturally talented or put in the work can have reality-bending power. Wars between powerful magic users are the reason that the three realms are connected with each other. They were originally one realm that was split into three pieces. Maggie does not have a talent for magic, but has magical members of her family, and had the option to learn magic if she so chose. Instead, she wanted to become a knight, and so that's what she did. Her sister Lily had no talent for magic, but was absolutely fascinated with it and studied it whenever possible. She was also fascinated by people who had magical abilities. Therefore, when the most powerful magician in the state came to visit their household, she was immediately fascinated with him. He was a red fire dragon who was the 27th in line for the throne and a couple years older than her. He had no true friends because they were either intimidated by him or wanted him to do them favors. He almost immediately fell in love with Lily. However, Lily was only interested in his magic and what he could teach her. They went on like that for over a year. Maggie kept trying to get Lily to break it off before someone got hurt, but she refused. It all came to a head when the prince proposed at an extremely public play. Lily laughed and tried to play it off as if he had made a joke. She tried to divert the conversation to the magic fireworks that he'd used for the proposal and how he had conjured them. The prince could have taken it if she had said that she wanted to be just friends earlier. He could have barely survived if she had turned his proposal down gently. But the harshness of it, and that she only seemed to care about what he could do as if he was some sort of carnival freak, that broke him. He turned into an actual dragon and snatched her away to a tower that she could not escape. He turned her into a human so that she could not fly away. He sent curses and plagues upon her family city and each time demanded that she marry him. He would continue to act as a scourge upon her people otherwise. She continued to refuse. Maggie stormed the castle to save her sister, but the prince was significantly more powerful than anyone could guess, and he sent her to Leah's dimension. In the present, Vasiliki did her best to get back on Maggie and Leah's good side. Despite the fact that the fashion show lost funding and she was pressured into buying war bonds, she still was rich and tried to make her friends' lives as comfortable as possible while they all planned how they were going to stop the war. The lady president wanted to take over Leah's world so that she could take all of the tech-based countries from her own world and banish them to a world that didn't have magic in the first place. The newly emptied countries could provide space so that magic could progress to the point that they could eradicate all diseases and elevate quality of life without distraction from people who did things differently than them. There were accusations that Lady President had rigged the election by chanting her voice to hypnotize the populace to vote for her, whether or not they actually agreed. That seems like a good midpoint for that story. This is running a bit long. Also, I didn't know how they fixed that problem and how they defeat the prince and get Maggie's city back. So I'm going to stop here and make a part 2 in a couple months that solves everything, probably. I do have some ideas. On to Maggie's final design. It looks like I was really in the zone for this final attempt because I drew it all in one take. The first difference that I made was to use very thick lines for the first blockout sketch. I decided on square-shaped language with some sharp edges. I also made the limbs thicker and more muscular because I decided to make her more of a warrior character than my original idea of a cheerful pop star personality. Part of that was because I decided that Vasiliki was going to be a model, and I thought that models and pop stars have too much overlap, and that a warrior would balance out the cast. It also fits Griffin's mythologically guarding treasure. I gave her a spear, which I probably should have looked up a reference for, but looks good enough in this cartoony style. I drew her outfit on a different layer in pink and the griffin wings and tail in green. I gave her a short and spiky hairstyle to emulate the feather ruff of a bird, and because short hair is better for combat. I changed the canvas size to square because the wings and the body weren't really both fitting in the vertical composition. I used to draw in square composition all of the time, so I have an easier time with figuring out which poses will work with it than in vertical. I used a thin tapered brush for the second sketch layer, like what I would later use for the line art. It took a while to get the face to look right, though I think I defaulted to a generic anime face instead of trying to figure out how to draw a woman with a strong jaw, or have her with an upturned head looking down on us. There was a lot of defining the shapes from the first sketch on this layer and figuring out how to define things as in front of or behind each other without different colored sketches. I think I still had Greek fashion in mind, and so I gave her a skirt. It was sort of a normal mini skirt because I didn't know what European armor looks like on the crotch area, and I was too in the zone to look up a reference. I have no idea if this looks right or not. It probably really clashes with the overall outfit and her no-nonsense personality. There's also the whole wearing a skirt over presumably leather armor pants number that she's doing. The wings are fluffy but very flat looking. I'm going to say that this is a stylistic choice. I accidentally gave the wings a round shape language that doesn't really match the rest of the character. I'm not sure I can say that this is a stylistic choice. I don't think that I've ever drawn square wings, and I guess I was too scared to try. I started the final line art layer with the hand because I think I really like that hand, even though I usually start with the face. I probably still thought the face was too masculine looking. I drew in the arms, bracers, or whatever armor is called. It looks like I might have just made that up or was thinking of football gear or something. And I drew the spear. I moved on to draw the face. I simplified the hair and added emphasis to the eyelashes and lips. I mostly copied the rest of the outfit from the sketch, though I did add detail to the shoes. They sort of make sense, but I drew in each segment separately, which makes it look weird and not three-dimensional. This in contrast to drawing the outline and then adding in the detail work. I copied one of the wings and distorted it to fit the 3/4 perspective of the pose. I started the coloring by at first manually blocking in the color. And then I copied the line art and used the fill bucket tool to finish the base. I used a clipping mask to add in more colors. I think I was thinking of a bald eagle, except this and the black is probably too dark for that. I'm not sure what sort of eagle and lion I mixed together for this character. I gave her gold armor to keep with the warm color palette, and because I needed to add some lighter colors. It did end up pretty much all darks and midtones. I need to work on that. I tried a couple times to get the leather armor straps to look right. I made the bodysuit this desaturated blue color and accidentally made it into this thick wool type of fabric. I mean, it's chainmail. Chainmail that I didn't make too shiny because I didn't want to draw attention for the armor pieces, yes. I tried to give her a bright pink shirt, but because nothing else in the design was that bright color, it stuck out too much. And so I darkened and desaturated it until it looked right. Shaded the armor to be as shiny as possible. I don't know how well the face stands out from the wing that's a similar color. I really do like the grass that I made for the background. I tried a lot of new things with all of these designs, and some of my experiments had more success than others. The crossed arms of Leah and the profile face of Vasiliki turned out pretty well. With Magnolia, the challenge was to use brown as her primary color. Brown is tricky because it's functionally only dark or desaturated pinks, reds, oranges, or yellows, and not really its own color. I think I stuck too much to that one hue of red that I stuck with. If I varied the types of brown, it would have pulled together a bit better. Maybe I need to study how other people use brown color schemes. I did, however, learn a lot drawing her. Which is your favorite design or character? And that's it for today. This was supposed to be a quicker video to make, but it has significantly longer drawing time and a significantly longer script than I originally intended. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you when I see you. Bye! Do you know who I am? I have a washing machine, David, a washing machine.